Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and today I'm going to be doing my top 10 games of 2022 revisited. Yes, I did see other channels do this, and yes, I'm completely copying that idea because I think that oh, here's Sea of Stars. I don't know why I minimized that. Yeah, I think that's a really fun idea, especially because as the years go on, you typically play more and more games that came out years prior, and those might have been great, and you just, for one reason or another, didn't get to play them. And it's just another reason to talk about more games. So, with this one, I'm going to be doing 2022 because it's the most recent year. Well, technically 2023 is, but I just uploaded all my top 10s and top 5 lists for that year, so definitely go check those out. 2023 was great, and the years prior were equally great. So, like I normally do whenever I'm doing top 10s by myself, I just go straight to BGG and type in the games. And here we go. So, with an honorable mention, I will also be talking about obviously the games that were in that spot previously, or if it got moved out, so we will go over the original top 10 because yeah, it's pretty much, I mean, it's pretty different for the most part anyway. So with my new honorable mention of 2022, that is going to be Carnegie. So Carnegie is a fantastic game about Andrew Carnegie, the businessman who I think at the end of his life just gave away a bunch of his money, donated tons of it to various foundations. Now, this was a game that obviously looks as dry as it possibly can. I mean, come on, look at that. But the gameplay loop for this is exquisite. Like, you have your own little buildings that do various actions, and you are putting workers in those buildings to obviously do them based off, however many actions or how many slots there are for workers, how much money you have. You have this track over on the right for various abilities that you kind of level up. These are the different types of buildings. Like the top one doesn't really give you a whole lot until you get to the very end. Then these are like supposed to be parks, factories. I think these are like financial businesses, and I can't remember what the bottom was. But your entire goal is to obviously have the most points. What makes this game fantastic is most of your points are not coming during the game. It's coming at the end of the game, which thematically, at least to me, makes sense that it's like, okay, Andrew Carnegie didn't really do a whole lot in his life. It wasn't until the end of his life that all of his renown came about. That's how I take it anyway. But you're also trying to put down your markers in different cities, making connections, doing an area control, a little aspect in these different regions to be able to get bonuses for moving up on this track. It's as Euro as the game as a Euro gets, but it's just fascinating. I love the action selections of what actions are coming. Tons of variety in this game. I just also like this. I like games where you have your own personal action board. Anachrony has that as well, where it's like, these are the things I've built, and these are the actions only I can take. And you actually have to move your workers around in your own business. There's a lot that goes into this. The reason why I moved back, because it was number 8 in the original, is I haven't touched it in, a little bit. So, actually, if I'm being completely honest, I haven't touched it probably since I played it in 2022. And sometimes that just happens, especially if you're a content creator, which, I mean, I guess I am in some sort, you're just constantly playing games and playing new games, and I do a bunch of different ideas, or I'm trying to, so that, just makes it harder to get these games to the table. But still on the list, honorable mention for Carnegie. Number 10 was also previously on the list, and I'm very excited for the following episodes that should be coming out in 2024, which is now this year, and that is Perseverance. If I knew how to spell Perseverance, episodes 1 and 2. So, my one major gripe with this game is it's even for 3 and 4, I do not like the fact that they lump episodes 1 and 2 together. I see why they did it, because it makes sense, because episode 1, which is narratively or thematically, they are telling a story. So episode 1 is as you landed on the island of dinosaurs and they're coming to attack you. You're basically fending off and defending in these different columns. And then episode 2 is like, okay, we defended it, we built our walls, we got our base set up, now we're going to go start exploring. And episodes 3 and 4 are going to expand upon that. This is Mind Clash. Mind Clash is kind of my new peak of Euro games. Like, so Vita Lasarda games just aren't in my collection at all anymore, just because I don't feel like I want to ever set those up. And also, I mean, these games just have so much variety to them. I think this guy might even have either painted minis or he just replaced them. Yeah, I'm pretty sure these dinosaurs are painted. But there's a ton that goes into this game. There's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of like exploration, like doing event cards that require different resources to be able to complete. It is ultimately a dice worker placement game. Each player has these different types of dice with symbols on it that as you roll them, those are the actions that you can take. I like that aspect of randomness. I don't like, oh, here's what I want to do, let's hope I can do it. That is kind of the same thing, but mentally you haven't like set your expectations on that. So whenever you just kind of roll these dice and you're like, okay, here are my options, and there's ways to mitigate it, but ultimately doing different actions to build walls, set traps, because it's kind of a cooperative tower defense, but not really. Like, you put up different warriors and your own leader, everyone has a leader, to defend from these various columns, which are part of these 4 different groups: expansion, protection, and you're also trying to get bonuses from the different chiefs. So there's kind of a reputation system, because you get votes. Like, the theme is like, oh, hey, you protected us the most, you're going to be our new leader, is the theme. But this one, along with every other Mind Clash game, I don't think I've played one of theirs that is bad. I love all their games. And while I'm not the biggest dinosaur fan, like I'm not like super into dinosaurs, I think this game does the theme very, very well. And so episode 1 is really good as a tower defense, and what's even cool about episode 2 is it adds that exploration, building, or setting buildings up further off into the map. And the rules that you used in episode 1 pretty much carry over into episode 2, so I really enjoy that. So I see why they did episode 1 and 2. So yeah, this one is still very, very good. I have the deluxe stuff, so that makes it a little bit better. But yeah, so that is my number 10. I think I mentioned it earlier, but this was sitting at number 7 not last year, in 2022. And that's like probably going to be a running theme. It's the exact same reason as Carnegie's. I haven't played this as much, and just games get more love if they get played. So that is my number 10, Perseverance. My number 8, which actually doesn't even look like it was on the list originally. I wonder if that was I don't know where it was. Not up to number 11. But my number 9 this time around is Now or Never. This game, I feel like, didn't get as much love as I actually would have expected. Because, let's see, Near and Far. So Now or Never is at 7.8 with almost 1,000 ratings. Near and Far, 7.7, but that has 10K ratings. So that, I mean, is obviously technically a better score just from an average standpoint. And then above and below, I mean, it came out forever, 7.4, 16K rating. So yeah, so Now or Never is like actually not getting played by that many people or ranked. I mean, I do agree with the best at 2 because this game is insanely long. But this kind of feels like it's funny, with Sleeping Gods both out, so Sleeping Gods and Sleeping Gods Distant Skies, it feels now that Above and Below, Near and Far, and Now or Never were all culminations of leading up to that, because in Near and Far, you have the board that is, I wonder if there's a picture of, yeah, kind of in this one at least. The board is long. It's one of those weird long boards that I don't really know why they did that, but basically you're trekking across the land, defeating monsters, getting resources, and having encounters like you kind of do in Near and Far. The biggest twist to this one is you have your own little village board. So whenever, yeah, here we go. Here's a really good one. So you have various inhabitants of your village that give you resources that you can put them into the little buildings to get you abilities, knowledge, and this is like your resource track down at the bottom, so you have your own personal track of how you're keeping track of resources. You're going out and completing quests. Like I attribute this one a little bit more to, I kind of lean it more towards Sleeping Gods than Near and Far, and that's because I think there was a picture of it earlier. There certainly was at one point. Here we go, it's right here. And that's because there are various chapters. So the chapters are centered around your character and like the character that you're playing, and then the story encounter. So it feels a lot more personable whenever you're playing. I mean, you have these different other buildings that you can build, and it just feels a little bit more lived in. Because my problem with Near and Far originally was, the game's connected, like each map connected, but because you were trying to win, the story stuff kind of got missed. And this really brings that out a little bit more. I think the combat in this game is really neat too. So this is just going to be probably the picture of the day. So you have this character that you can upgrade and get different workers and followers, and then you have your own health and you have your own way of attacking based off your D4 that you can also upgrade with that, and you can get equipment that would help within combat. But combat was basically, it was kind of deterministic, but it was also so streamlined and straightforward that it wasn't just like, okay, well, the top of this stack is a 3, so I can beat a 3, so therefore I'll beat that, and the next one's going to be 4, and then 5. It wasn't really like that. Enemies appeared on the board, and you knew what was there. You knew if you could potentially beat it, but it wasn't a sure thing. It had different mechanisms that kind of made me enjoy this a lot more. But at the same time, it's incredibly long. I would never play this with max player counts. I am very interested to know how many people. 77% are saying it's best at 2. And these 2 people, man, they're diehard max players. But yeah, Now or Never doesn't really get the love I think it deserves. But at the same time, out of the 3, Above and Below, Near and Far, in this one, it is the heavier of the 3. So I think they're all good at this point, but I enjoy Now or Never. I need to dive into it more. Again, I have not touched all the chapters, and I really want to. I really should. But, I mean, now you got Sleeping Gods. So, yeah. Anyway, that's my number 9. Was not on the list in the original list, so sneaking in at number 9. Number 8 was on the list previously, and this is one of the best pirate games I can think of that's recent, and that is Dead Reckoning. Oh, and I mean, coming from just a year ago, because it's just 2024, this game has gotten a ton of content, a ton of love here. I mean, just the Letters of Mark, the Salt and Thunder, and Deep Legends, and Sea Dogs. Like 4 expansions just in the year it came out, which obviously this was Kickstarter, so it came with expansions. But then it got another one in 2023, and I know it's getting another one in 2024. That I think is supposed to just be more content. I don't think it's supposed to be like more campaign stuff. I think it's meant to just be. I'm hoping it's like more unique crew and weapon and ship upgrades. That would be really neat. Like really go crazy with the ship. But this to me is kind of one of the. It's like more Euro Merchants and Marauders. So if you remember Merchants and Marauders from who knows how long ago, 2010, 14 years ago, man. This was like Fantasy Flight. Oh no, it was Z-Man. No, I feel like it was Fantasy Flight before. Anyway, this was like your quintessential pirate game. Dead Reckoning is kind of now that for Eurogamers. So you have your various card crafting. That's one really cool thing about this game is everyone has like the same crew mates that have like an innate ability, but then as you go and trade or as you explore islands and buy upgrades, you can slot them into your crewmates, and now that card has more things it can do. It's a John D. Clare game, so that's pretty much what you're almost always going to get from him with Edge of Darkness and Mystic Veil. I wish there was one with a picture with the board, but I am not seeing one right now. That's a picture of the combat die or combat cube tower, which is really neat. Come on, give me a board picture. That was kind of one. Yeah, so it kind of has a sense of 4X nature because you are exploring, you have your own ship that you're moving around, you are expanding, I guess expanding upon your ship. You exploiting because you are, you get forced into combat, you can become a pirate and be targeted and fight other players, as well as there are these naval ships that you can come and fight and get resources that way. And exploit did I already say? I always forget the fourth one. But there's also these islands that you're trying to do area control for, or not area control, just control, because you have these cubes that you can put on and get benefits. You can even defend it by putting fortresses and like cannons on it to defend it if people want to try and take it from you. There's a lot that is going on in this game, and for me personally, I can't really think of anything like that's missing from this game in terms of what you would want out of a pirate game, because you have a horde, you even have your own treasure thing. Granted, that just holds your pieces, but like whenever you want to safely deposit treasure, you you have to go back to harbor. When you want to use resources, you have to go back to harbor, and there's just so much that this game includes for pirate games that here's another really good one. I guess it's like a lot of pirate stuff is fantastical. So Merchants and Marauders has things that are more fantasy, like Captain Hook or Pirates of the Caribbean. This doesn't have that. This is a little bit centered more into realism. Even the combat, which is cube based, where whenever you go to fight someone, you pull up a certain number of cubes based off, okay, well, I have this many cannons, I have this, I have my gunner, I have this crewmate and this ability, so that's going to drop this many cubes, and then you're going to drop that many cubes, and you just kind of drop them in, and it falls in, and you're trying to land on these crown spots, so combat isn't guaranteed. It's because you could just roll more cubes but get more on damage, and the person could get all theirs on these crown spots, which would cause them to ultimately win, but yet they might just get super damaged and no resources. And you're also trying to fulfill just different objectives. First one to get 30 money. First one to deposit this many supplies. First one to explore down into the 4th section. First one to build, just kind of those Scythe-esque objectives that everyone's aiming for, but they're all public. I have actually not touched any of the expansion stuff, which is funny because that's just the nature of it. But I've heard that it just adds. I mean, that's what makes kind of the game more unique. I think it adds a campaign. It adds unique stuff from each chapter of the various expansions that bring up like unique ship parts and buildings and things that like objectives. That's all I know of the expansions. But Dead Reckoning I think is fantastic. I'm excited to, even though I haven't touched any of the other stuff, I'm excited to see what's being added. And who knows, maybe 2024 is the year of Dead Reckoning and I finally get to touch all my stuff. But yeah, that was number 8, and in the original it was number 6. So yeah, so 3 out of the 4 have moved back. And that's because there's some games that got added into the list, which is number 7. Number 7 was not originally on the list, and I actually surprisingly thought it would be higher. But I think I got this game after I had already done 2022. I think I got it in 2023 because I completely avoided this, at all costs because of the original being so bad. But this one is Massive Darkness 2 Hellscape, which, man, if you just want to talk about a fun game, Massive Darkness 2 nails it. Basically, my only criticism, well, there's 2, but one's a Simon criticism where the fact is there's just never any amount of storage with their game. It's just, here's a bunch of shit, figure it out. But the major one, which, I mean, everyone always says, is they should have renamed it something else. Because Massive Darkness 1 is super bad, and I bet you they would have made more money if they called it something else, but basically made it the same game. This is as pure of a dungeon crawler as you can get. Like this, I think this is actually like the Rainbow expansion. Yeah, with like the unicorns and Nugbear. Okay. But like the original, so it's a dungeon crawler. It utilizes this dark and light spaces. You want to be in the dark. Other various enemies get benefits or detriments depending on if they're in the light or dark spaces on the board. What makes Massive Darkness just so much better is, one, it is a looter style game, so where you're constantly getting, weapons and armor and items and abilities. Those are all fun. And that feels very roguelike-esque, where every time you're killing someone or kicking down doors or moving, you're getting cool equipment that's like either immediately great for your build, so you feel like a badass, or it's not great for your build, but you can sell it and turn it in, so then you get higher level items that then go for your build, and then you feel like a badass. And the swarms of enemies, even though that like whenever you pull from them, they have like a leader and like minions and mobs, it doesn't feel overbearing. The first one just kind of always had just clunks of metal that did nothing. And here, the monsters do feel like they're doing something, and you feel powerful when you kill them, but also a sense of danger because you don't have a whole lot of health either. And then it's also scenario-based. But the other thing that makes Massive Darkness 2 super duper fun is, one, there's a ton of characters you can play as, but is the role that you get. I'm trying to find just a picture that might have it. So when you decide to play a role, obviously certain characters can play roles, like if you want to be the bard or the ranger or the thief or the barbarian, you play differently than everyone else. It's not just a matter of what weapons you get. Your weapons help and they enhance the role that you're playing, but everyone's playing kind of like a different mini game. Like the ranger has a push your luck mechanism with its deck of arrow cards. The thief pulls from a bag. It does like a bag building kind of thing. The wizard has a dial, has a rondel that it's moving to cast its spells, and that needs to be implemented in other games, because that is such a brilliant idea, and that's what makes this game super fun. Is you want to play roles just because of the gimmick that each one has that makes you feel different. And whenever because you level up just like in a lot of their other cooperative games as you gain XP. Everyone levels up the same based off just XP, but how they level up is different, if that makes sense. And I think that is just so much fun, because it's like, normally in games like this, I don't want to be like the berserker, kind of like just run in screaming. That's not my playstyle. But then I've done it so many times in this one because it's fun. He deals with like a rage meter and wants to get hurt because he gets more powerful. So whenever you're rolling a shit ton of dice and getting benefits from that. This person, I think, who are they playing? I actually don't know what role they're playing. The Necromancer. No idea. Yeah, but they have some elite epic armor, and I think the white armor is like holy armor this must be from the expansion. But what's also really cool is in the original, the big monsters that came out just felt like they did nothing. They were dumb and they were just kind of there. In this one, when the big enemies come out, they're still a problem, but you can still deal with them just as much. It's a lot quicker. Yeah, Massive Darkness 2 Hellscape is so much fun. Like, it's been a while since and that was with this one and Marvel Zombies, that I feel like was kind of just missing in a lot of these one-off games, because I play a lot of campaign games. This one and Marvel Zombies were just like scenario-based. We're done whenever, in an hour and a half, and it was just a fun hour and a half. So Massive Darkness 2 jumped into the list at number 7. I really hope they do more. Like, honestly, I think this one did well enough. I'm very curious. Massive Darkness 2 Kickstarter. Boom. How much did it make? It could have made so much more. Like, I think it made 3.8 million. Yeah. I think a lot of people didn't touch it because of the name. Let's see. Massive Darkness 1. How much did that make? 3.5. Yeah. See, this game is bad. The second one is, night and day difference. Anyway, so that was number 7, Massive Darkness 2. Number 6 is a game I have played quite a bit and still have not beaten. This actually also was not on the list originally. And that is Frostpunk. So Frostpunk is based off the not Glass Cannon, the 11-bit game, where you are trying to survive an apocalyptic winter apocalypse by using various buildings to use wood and coal to heat up the generator and keep everyone warm and healthy and full. But obviously you can't do any of that. This game is so hard. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think there is either an errata or an update that fixes the first scenario, because it is brutal. I have tried scenario 1 so many times and started off in so many different ways, because it's like you try to course correct. So it's like, okay, well, for this game I just lost because everyone got sick. Okay, well, let's try and prevent that. So you put a lot of effort into keeping everyone healthy, but then everyone gets everyone gets hungry, so then they starve. So then you try and course correct by making sure you have enough food. And then you can't generate enough heat, so then you try to generate enough heat. It's so much that has to go right for you to win this game, and I love it. I am of the opinion that cooperative games need to be very difficult. Well, not very difficult. I think there should be like granular scales of difficulty, because I mean, if it's just impossibly RNG, then I don't think that's not balanced. But if cooperative games, if you win every single time and there's no way to change that, then it's like, okay, well, I'm kind of done. And here, I feel a sense of challenge to keep trying, to keep playing the game, because it's like, okay, what if we enacted these laws? What if we explored more? What if we built these buildings? Because there's a lot. There's not a overwhelming amount of stuff in this game, but there's still a lot of different strategies that you can implore. Like, I mean, just a basic one is like child labor is a law that you can pass, but the other one, which means that, hey, now normally, I don't know where they're at. Normally these green, I think the green are the children. Normally the green children are just there. They can't do anything, but you still have to feed them. If you enact child labor, well, they can do a couple other stuff. They can't go out and like run the oil rig or the coal miner, but they can go out and shovel snow, or they can get wood or things like that. But that makes people upset because you're making their children work, which so the opposite side is you can do child shelters, which means that now it's easier for them to sleep, but that means you're still feeding them without them providing anything. And there's just so many of those decisions, because a lot of actions, and this does kind of what Robinson Crusoe fails at, is the actions that you, or the decisions that you make, whether it's with laws or events or anything, those all go into an event deck that share the same back. So while you made a decision, you're not sure what the outcome is going to be until it pops back up. But you also do know whenever it comes to, I can't remember what the yellow card's called, you do know kind of a semi-objective, like, hey, let's keep in mind if we want to actually have, this resource in abundance, because if this card comes around and we don't have that, it's going to be really bad. So it's not completely just top deck randomness and you just hope that it goes in your favor. You do have imperfect information to try and make everyone as happy as you can make them. But yeah, it's brutal. It's such a brutal game. Extremely thematic. The text, there's tons of different texts you can get. I mean, this guy looks like he's probably doing super well because, I mean, he has all these buildings out, so he's explored the board. I think this is on Tabletop or whatever it's actually called. But yeah, like, you also know who's going to need to be fed, which means, like, if you bring in more people and more workers, that's great, but that means you have to feed them more. I think the one thing that is kind of more brutal than it needs to be is when someone dies, it's almost like game over. And I mean, you can have people die in this game. It's also a massive table hog. Like, it's insane. But when people die, I'm trying to find the track. Just from a quick glance, I think you can have like 3 people die in total before the game's over. But whenever someone does die, you draw the top card of the civilian deck, and that at the bottom of it, like, it has like a response. If like a worker died, then something happens. If it's an engineer, then something happens. If a kid, you basically lost, because kids can get sick and they can die if you don't heal them. And yeah, I mean, obviously that makes sense. Like, hey, this sucks. Like, morale's gonna probably drop if a kid dies. But that's the only part of the game that's more just top decking. I mean, you do have hands of civilian cards that give you special abilities if you use them. You could also use them to kind of control how everyone feels. However, if you don't have those, you just draw and it's like, okay, well, -5 hope, we lost because one person died. It's like, that's a little much. But other than that, like this cube tower where you're dropping cubes for coal to see if it, how many come out, and then if it's starting to over exert itself and break, there's just such a lot that Frostpunk gives that makes it just an outstanding cooperative game. So yep, that is my number 6. So yeah, then we go into number 5, which is one of Chip Theory's super fun games that they've actually supported a little bit since this came out. They have, what was it? It was the Renegades, Robophobia, and Ebwall. Those 3 expansions came out in 2023. I have a review over those if you want to know my thoughts on them. But Burncycle was also actually at number 5 in 2022. And Burncycle is, yeah, I mean, a puzzle or puzzly infiltration game. And it's exactly that. You pick basically a scenario that will kind of tell you what your overall objective is. That determines the length as well, and how many floors there are, which kind of equates to the length. And it also is a scenario based around which corporation you're going after. So, I mean, what's interesting is like the one thing about this game that you think would be kind of tedious, but surprisingly isn't, is that the layout of the corp you're going after is always the same. Like episodes or floors 1, 2, and 3 will always be the same layout. But, and you'd be like, oh, that's kind of a shame. I wish it would like change the rooms a bit. But it does make sense because that's the corporation that is its initial layout. But the scenario that you pick kind of will always supersede the layout because you're going to tackle it in a different way. You're going to have to do more. The robots that you're bringing in, which like this camel or moose or whatever that is, cow. I'm like, what the hell? Which robots you bring in are also going to dictate, how you're going to deal with the scenario. Then you have your, oh, I think it's actually called your Burncycle. Well, that's what this is. I can't remember what this role is called, but each robot can either be playable or it can be your like support player, which kind of gives an overall ability. That's going to change how you're going to go about it. The enemies that are in the game, how they patrol and how they react, that's going to change. Whoever your general is gonna change. I mean, depending if they come in or not. There's a lot that changes this game while keeping the layout the exact same, but it's basically dice action, and like these represent like your power, so however much health you have, and that's kind of going to determine your overall action efficiency, whatever your burn cycle is. If you want to do efficient actions, like green is like, okay, well, that's tech, that's network or terminal. So you can do those actions and it's going to be optimized, or you can just do something else and it's not going to be optimized. So you have ways of seeding this that will eventually run out before you have to completely reset. You have a mini game of this network that the corporation is going to manage and deal with as you're trying to get in and complete network cards, while also trying to prevent them from booting you and having them figure out where you're at, so then they all are alerted to your presence. What's really cool is this is not a combat game. You want a combat game from Chip Theory, get Too Many Bones or get Cloudspire, or I mean hell, get even Hoplomachus. That's probably even more combat heavy. But this one is like fighting as a last resort, and I like that. I like the infiltration feeling of, get in, do your job, get out, and if you have to fight, then like just do it very sparingly, unless you have like, casing or the dude who blows people up. But he's limited on doing that. It's so much fun. Like, all the expansions are great. I love the corporations. They've now released the brass mags for the generals, which I think makes it way more thematic. Your brass mags on your bots as well. Just kind of give it a 3D element, which makes it really cool. And yeah, they've just supported this in such a fantastic way. Tons of different robots to play, and extra accessories you can get from like the Robophobia or the Specialist expansions. So yeah, what's this picture? Oh, I think this is just the original. Yeah, the original box. And it's your standard Chip Theory components. It's phenomenal. Neoprene and the chips and the brass mags are just sexy as hell. So I'm very curious. I know they got Elder Scrolls coming in 2024, hopefully, but I wonder if they're going to do more content for this. I mean, I definitely wouldn't turn it down at all. So yeah, if you're looking for a game that is not combat heavy, is a lot more puzzle of here's the scenario, how are we going to go about it, and then thinking on your feet, um, then Burncycle is definitely one to give a shot. So that is my number 5. My number 4 is also getting some love in 2024, although it doesn't have any expansions. Didn't get any in 2023, but that is Townsfolk Tussle. And this game is just, I mean, it's Cuphead the game in the best way possible. And this was also number 4 in the original. So yeah, I mean it's actually really cool that Burncycle and this one were pretty consistent. Yeah, like I said, this is basically Cuphead the game in all its artwork, and it's a boss battler that does everything right for a boss battler. I guess I should say almost everything right. There's a couple things I wish that, and I even talked to the designers at Gen Con last year, kind of about if there was any way that they could tweak one of my small complaints. But and the small complaint is like basically whenever like you have these terrain pieces, whenever you're going to fight one of the bosses or the enemies, you flip over this card and that tells you how to lay out the terrain. To me, just because I like tons of variety, is like whenever you have terrain cards like this, it's very KDM or Aeon Trespass like. It's like these usually have rules on kind of how they get placed. Oh, 4 spaces away from the boss, or cannot be next to the edge, or whatever, stuff like that. I wish it kind of had that just to give a semblance of a little bit of different feeling whenever you're fighting the same enemy. However, I did ask them about that, and they said that the layout of each fight is designed to make the boss work. So I get where they're coming from. I wasn't like, oh, you guys fucking suck. It makes sense that if they've designed this enemy to act exactly like he does, then having things randomized could just completely shift the feeling of the fight. And I was like, all right, cool, that makes sense. But anyway, that was kind of my only minor complaint. But what's also cool is every enemy has a different final fight because you set up 4 fights. So a full game of Townsfolk is going to be 4 boss fights just in a random order. And whoever is your final boss will have final boss feelings or final boss rules. And I mean, it's just an exquisite game of just get super OP based off these random items you get from the peddler, because there's 2 phases. There's the buy phase, basically, and then there's the fight phase where you go to the peddler and, you know, get new goals. Everyone has like these goals that they're trying to do that gives them points as well as money to buy items to do their build, whether it's in hand, head, you know, body slots. And then whoever has the most points will typically be like the new sheriff and their special in the final fight. So it's kind of a small competition between players, but it's fully cooperative. Like it's not like, oh, you're the one that wins in Townsfolk Tussle because you got the most points. It's like, no, you're the sheriff, so now you have special rules going into the fight. The different characters, I don't know how many times, and like I said, it's random setting up the enemies. Somehow Samuel Strawman is almost always my first fight, and Will Barlow is almost always my final fight, and I don't know why. It's so weird. But if you are looking for, I mean, just because 2023 or 2023, 2022 and 2023 were the years of the boss battler, and I said that as like the years were coming up because I knew so many were coming out, and I was sick and tired of KDM being the only one, that I was like, thank God these games exist now, because now it's a fantastic genre to be in when done well. But yeah, you move around a grid, fight an enemy that has an enemy deck. It can interrupt you as soon as you break certain health thresholds, and they all play completely different, and even if they're not the final boss, they play different, and that's just what's amazing. And in 2024, getting some expansions, that are giving more enemies, more characters to play. Oh, that's cool. Foul Neighbors is a combination of the ominous skies and eerie neighbors they had originally planned. By combining, they cut down on and reduce waste. Cool. But yeah, including more ruffians and players, and then Odd Jobs is more content for the peddler. But there's a ton of stuff. Just it's so good. And if you love Cuphead, then I highly recommend you get Townsfolk Tussle, because it's that through and through. So that was my number 4, Townsfolk Tussle. My number 3 is actually new to the list, and I don't know. I mean, just it feels like it should have been on the list originally, and I don't know what happened. But my number 3 is Heat, Pedal to the Metal. Yeah, I mean, honestly, what can I say about this game that I haven't, or that hasn't already been said? Has there been expansion? Yeah, Heavy Rain. Ooh, very excited for that. But Heat, Pedal to the Metal was, I mean, one of the most popular games to come out this year, and Days of Wonder just for some reason probably didn't anticipate it being that highly wanted, because no one could get a copy of this. And I did. I don't even remember how I got it. I think I just bought it off of I just got it offline, just probably right before it needed to be it was being desired. But this is a deck builder, a slight deck builder game about racing, and the game comes with 4 different tracks, but the way that you actually play this game just has that feeling of racing. Like, I haven't played Thunder Road Vendetta, and there's just other types of racing games like that people, what's it, Downforce, that a lot of people compared this to, but it's like Downforce is an auction game. I wouldn't ever consider it a racing game. At least it doesn't feel like a racing game. And this absolutely does, because you are your own color. If you're playing blue, that's you, and you are trying to make it through 2 laps of this game while managing your speed and your deck and the heat, which is the big thing. So as you exert yourself, you add heat into your deck that as you draw it, it basically clogs up your deck, and you're like, okay, I still have to play a certain number of cards, but now I can only move 1 or 2 spaces because my engine's overheating, so I need to throttle down so I can cool down, put them back in, because I'm going to need to do that same cycle. The 4 maps are completely dynamic from one another, and what makes this game even more fantastic is just the different modules that were brought in. This wasn't Kickstarter. Granted, if they went on Kickstarter, they would make a shit ton of money. But it adds like a garage module, which allows you to have unique cards in your deck. It adds a weather module that makes, each map play different. It adds a tournament module, where you do, each map, and your placement gives you victory points. The solo mode for this game is exquisite. It is one of the best and easiest solo modes to manage. In fact, I wouldn't even really call it a solo mode. I mean, you can, obviously, but that's what... Where is it? Oh, I thought they had the deck out, or the player aid, or the mat out. But, like, honestly, whenever I play this game, if I don't have, hell, it doesn't even really matter how many players I have. I throw in the AIs because they're so simple to learn, and they're not a pushover. You can actually change the difficulty as you see fit, but I've never felt a reason to change the difficulty because they beat my ass most of the time. They work so well that it's like, oh, well, we only have 3 players. Okay, well, put in the 3 AIs because they run off the same deck, and now you have a full crew, a full race. It's so good. So I'm really hoping that either I'm lucky enough or Days of Wonder is smart enough to overproduce the expansion, because, like, at least do a pre-order thing so before they go into producing or something, because that expansion is going to be coveted so well. I love the different tracks. The one thing about this game I don't really like all that much, and that's not even part of the game's fault, but is it could feel a little bit random if you're only doing one lap. If you're only running one lap, then your deck it could hose or help you. But and that's usually, I've only felt that because I didn't like this game. I actually demoed it at Gen Con, and I was like, okay, yep, that was a game that was made. And then I kept hearing of so many great things. I'm like, oh, I'll give it another shot. And then my worries, because whenever you're like, okay, well, this is my hand, I can't do much. Yeah, that can suck whenever it's not happening to other players. But if your hand isn't great and you have to come around this bank and you didn't do it well enough, or your deck didn't work for you and you finally come around, well, knowing you have other laps to come, it doesn't actually feel that bad. Like, I've had people who I was in the lead as they got choked up on this USA track specifically, but then they catch right back up, and then it's neck and neck, and you're what, I can't remember what that's called. Yep, that action right there. You're drifting around them. It just feels so good. So that is my number 3, Heat Pedal to the Metal. Very, very excited for this Heavy Rain expansion. It doesn't even have any art. What does it even add? 2 new maps, Japan and Mexico, new upgrade cards, submerged track sections. Must spend extra heat for downshifting. That's cool. More heat, stress champion. Yeah, just more. It's what Days of Wonder does for their expansion. It's just more content. Oh, they only added 1 new driver. Interesting. Because in the original box, there's 2 empty slots, and it's like, okay, well, they're going to add 2 more drivers. But in this expansion, they only add 1. I wonder if that's because it still allows you to put in the bot. Yeah, I bet you that's probably why. Or they're playing on another expansion that adds to where it brings up to 8 players and more stuff. Who knows? But yeah, that's exciting. Anyway, that was my number 3, Heat Pedal to the Metal, which is new and shot all the way up to number 3. My number 2 game and my number 1 game are the exact same, in the exact same positions. And I will say, what's fascinating about this is in the original list, I could not decide which one to place at number 1. And how I decided was whichever one happened to have the higher BGG ranking, which was like by 1 point, by 0.1, I think it made my number 1. I can confidently say that now, after a year of these coming out, I obviously would keep these in the same. So I did make the right call. It did not swap. So my number 2 is Oathsworn, Into the Deepwood. This game is fantastic. I have a running series on it on the channel right now. Had to drop a player just through life circumstances, so now it's down to 2, but still, oh my god, is this game so good. I'm actually going to limit, this right here shows just the playable characters. I'm not gonna, I'll just show the cover, because unfortunately what they did for this game is they did a mystery box kind of setup. So whenever you're playing the game, there's 2 versions, or 2 ways you play it. You have the story mode, and then it goes to the encounter mode. So the story mode doesn't deal with these boxes at all. It's a map and the not the foreteller, their own app narration, where they got the guy that played Jor Mormont in Game of Thrones. He voices everything. But it's all story driven and making decisions and gaining information before you go into the encounter. The story sections of this game it's some of the best writing in board gaming, like just really immersive and visceral and dark, that is just captivating the entire time. You are invested with, it's not quite as personal to your character, but what role your character does come into play. So it's not like you're just sitting there listening. Things will be like, oh, if you have the witch, this happens. If you have the Ursus, If you have the war bear, this happens. So you do make checks, and you do have small skirmish combats um, in the story section, but ultimately it is narrative based. But man, like each chapter is just as captive. Like there has not been a weak chapter, and they do get creative with it too. Like I'm not going to spoil anything, but they have found a way to make. And I'm only on chapter I think I'm going to 15 at this point, so I'm almost done because there's like 21 chapters. So I'm almost done, but man, they make every single one for the stories just super like invigorating, and it's amazing. I love this setting, and I talked to them at Gen Con last year, and I was like, "Hey, you guys aren't done, right?" And they're like, "No, we're not." Uh, but because they have a area control game coming out, I think in 2024. But they basically made that as a buffer to kind of give them more time to make more Oathsworn stuff. So I don't know what their plans are. I don't know if they're keeping it into the Deepwood, or if they're going to go to a different section, like a different biome, or what. But man, I will be getting everything for it. And what's also great is each of these characters just plays different. Like my character right now is the priest, and we have the Ursus Warbear and the ranger, and then now we have the blade. So those are our 4 characters, and they all play radically different from one another. Just the way their decks and their cards work and the way they level up, it just feels so dynamic. And then you go into the encounter section where you actually do the bosses, and it's some of the best boss fights you'll ever play. They just found a way to make a dynamic and unique combat system in this game. I cannot gush about it enough because it's like here's one. Okay, so it's on the box cover, so this isn't a spoiler. I mean, I guess technically anything I say could be a spoiler if you're a little bit like me, but it's on the box cover. So, I mean, if you see the cover, you saw at least this. Every single boss plays completely different from one another. Their rules and their layouts, they've even done an update pack to like refine or enhance characters and bosses to make it either more thematic or that make them not feel so cheap or whatever it might be, or harder or easier. This combat system is amazing because what's interesting is you have information on what the enemy's going to do. Like the top card of their deck is face up, unlike KDM or Aeon, Trespass, or any of these other types of like Townsfolk, Tussle, all these games. You don't know what they're going to do. You have ways to potentially find out through items and stuff, but in this game, it's face up, so you can look over and be like, "That's what's doing," but you cannot do anything about it. You have to injure it, and once you break a die, because it's dice locations of body parts, once, oh, that's really good. Yeah, so once you break a location, that's what it's going to do. So you either have to, your best bet is you try to mitigate the damage. You try and look at it and be like, okay, we want to hit it, we want to break a location. Can we be in a position to where that card's not going to do anything? But at the same time, if you break a location, then the next card, I think they actually made a rule change. The next card immediately gets flipped up. I don't think it originally was like that. So breaking a location gave you information, but you didn't know what was happening next. I think now you do, but now you have to be like, well, shit, that was our last attack. We didn't plan for what it's doing next. And I think that is a beautiful rule because a lot of times it can feel cheap to be like, well, I didn't know it was doing that. How am I ever supposed to win or plan for something that I have no idea from it just top decking? And here, it's just like, well, we have perfect knowledge, but it's still going to do stuff. And I have had very, very few fights where it was a steamroll, one or the other. Like, it's like every single fight, pretty much, I think there's maybe been one where it's like, whew, that was actually kind of easy. Has just been down to the wire, or someone goes down. Excuse me. But, oh man, yeah, these boss fights are something else. And what's really cool is, so I mentioned these mystery boxes. They're all obviously assigned to the chapter. So number 1 is the first chapter, and that's cool because whenever you're first going through the campaign, you're like, man, what are we gonna fight? What's it gonna be? And that's exciting, and I really, really like that. And my worry was that, does that go away whenever you play again? Do you lose that sense of, well, I know what it is? Obviously you do, but it has not changed the gameplay. I fought the rat multiple times, showing people this game, but it does kind of come down to, one, you can play on a harder difficulty. 2, your weapons and your equipment are going to be different, and 3, who you're playing is going to be different. Who you're playing with is going to be different. Yeah, there is a wonderful excitement of not knowing what the next fight is, and then you set it up and you open the box and you see what it is, and you're like, oh shit, 1, this mini's amazing. 2, okay, how is this thing going to fight? That's fantastic, and I hope that with their new content, they actually do keep the mystery boxes, because your first experience is going to be the best. But I can confidently say that if you find them again, you do another campaign, the gameplay is still just as good. Like, it's still a 10 out of 10 game. It's exquisite. So, Oathsworn, Into the Deepwood, my number 2 for 2022. It was number 2 last year. And I cannot wait to see what else they do for this world, because it's awesome. And that brings my number 1 of 2022. Well, I was doing a series. We took a break because we were doing a lot of series at the time. It's going to be a restarted series, or probably by the time this video goes up, it's already been started, of this game, still at number 1, and that is Aeon Trespass Odyssey. Wow, they're both at 9.1. Well, good thing last time, I think Oathsworn had like a 9.0. This has 2.1 thousand ratings. Oathsworn has 3.7. Wow. Wow. But that would mean that this is actually the better average, because it's less ratings, but the same score. Right? No, that just, well, I think it probably breaks down. It obviously breaks down to being the same. But this also, they went through a bunch of shit in 2023 with that shitty ass YouTuber who's like tried to extort them. And they're like, yeah, we're not doing that. Okay, Aeon Trespass Odyssey. Man, like, I'm trying to even think of where to begin. This is basically Kingdom Death Monster, but better in every way, in my opinion. In my humble opinion. No, this just gives me exactly what I wanted out of KDM. KDM is way more survival horror. This is kind of more adventure horror, but set in a setting that, even though I love the setting of KDM, I really love the setting of Aeon Trespass Odyssey. This primordial, Lovecraftian kind of Greek mythology is brilliant. Like, the team at Into the Unknown actually recently shared pictures of like far off projects that they have. Like, they have this one, they have Kingdom Forlorn, which is my most anticipated game of 2024. But they shared like concept pictures of other things that they want to work on, and I was like, those just look, just as amazing. But this also has story, and a ton of it, and the writing is on par with Oathsworn. Well, I'd actually give the slight edge to Oathsworn, only because they actually have audio narration. Like, I don't have to read everything. I don't have to do voices or anything like that. Oathsworn, even though he doesn't do voices, his voice is sexy as hell. But that's going to be fixed because the newest Kickstarter ads will bring in foreteller narration, and I cannot wait for that. But you have basically the beats of kind of like, you have your adventure mode where you're going around the world. Let's see if I can find some. some pictures of the map. Can I? Oh, that is so much. That is so much better. Yeah. So you have these tiles similar-esque to Seventh Continent, except they're like smaller. So you're traveling across that map, having events. So you have rest and relaxation events, just kind of more personal stuff that are with like your crew, and then you have other just cycle encounters that are adventure hubs. I mean, there are 3 cycles that come in the game, and there's going to be so much fucking more. Like, there's so much content coming for this game. Okay, well, I really don't want to see a million minis painted, even though, yeah, play. All right, that's pretty cool. Whatever. I'll just go back to all. Um, but you have those narrative story events, and then you actually have like your major story, which is based around the cycle, all centered around a timeline similar to Kingdom Death Monster, where you will eventually come across a fight, even though it's not settlement phase, hunt phase, settlement, hunt phase. It's you kind of go through a lot of the settlement phase stuff, the adventure stuff, where you just travel, and then eventually it's like, okay, now we're having a fight, and the fights are, oh man, they're so good. And what makes this game better, in my opinion, just for my personal taste of Kingdom Death Monster, is it has the gameplay of it, which is amazing. I love miniature-based combat where it's orthogonal movement, both for range and for movement. That kind of makes it feel a lot more tactful. And then you have your terrain pieces. You have your AI deck for each enemy. That's going to have an AI deck and how they play. And then, but what's great about this is you have this push your luck element in this game with the Triskelion. So that, like, they have their inverted paradigm system, which I think is trademarked by them, that instead of the enemy and you getting weaker, like in KDM, for example, if you're fighting the antelope, eventually, and it makes thematic sense, I'm not knocking it for that, but if you eventually chip away, and then the antelope can only do so much until it eventually dies. In this game, it goes in the opposite direction. So every time you wound it, the enemy gets tougher. But as you keep attacking, you get tougher. And that is such... I mean, this and Oathsworn just completely changed the way that I think boss battlers are going to work in the future. Because flipping that on its head, where as you keep attacking, you build up your rage meter, and you just start getting a lot more aggressive and extra abilities because of your rage. But every time you wound it, oh, that was a level 1 body part. Okay, take that one out, put in a level 2, which means it's going to be harder to hit, reactions are going to be a lot more aggressive, and its AI is also, like, it has levels of AI decks. It's like, okay, well, that level 1's getting put out, now a level 2. Oh, you actually happen to wound a level 2 a little earlier than normal. Take that level 2 out, now there's a level 3, and that level 3 is going to be brutal. So you have those, like, where the battles are just ramping up instead of dwindling down, and that is just so... it keeps you engaged. Like, never in any of these fights do you feel like, okay, this is kind of like becoming tedious, because it just can't. It's you're invested the entire time because it just keeps getting more and more exciting. And on top of that, so you have your rage, you have your danger, and you have your... oh, hey, here we go. And you have your fate. And this Triskelion dial is such an awesome design as well, because your fate is your reroll system. Like, it does D10s and stuff, but it's like, if you like roll poorly, you can increase your fate to reroll. You can only do it once, but if your fate's super high, that will affect some cards, and they're typically negative. Like, it's but I love the fact that it's you deciding that. You as a player decide if you want to risk that. You could just never re-roll. Take it as it is, and maybe you roll super well, and you never have to. Or maybe you're always rolling poor, and you want to, but you're never forced to. And I love that that's given you the decision. There's so much to explore in Aeon Trespass. I think gameplay-wise, I would probably put Oathsworn ahead. I do think that with the battles of Oathsworn, I love the system a little bit better. These games are both 10 out of 10s for me. They're so fucking awesome for me. And I'm boasting a 9.1, so thank God I didn't have that dilemma in 2022. However, the overall package of Aeon Trespass I love way more. There's so much content in this game. You want to talk about a lifestyle game? There, I mean, it has to be this. Like Cycle 1, just you could do Cycle 1 over and over and over and over, and probably after like maybe 5 full playthroughs of it, you might finally see everything. And then there's 2 more cycles just in the base game, and it's insane. I'm not even talking about all the new stuff that's coming. Like, yeah, like this Onwards Odyssey, I think is a mini campaign. They're not even showing them here, but these are just titans, like different titans that you can breed and kind of I think this is actually tied with Madara. Yeah, Nyx Titan. I think I have that, or I'm gonna have it. But I'd have to go through my backer kit and show you, but there's a lot of stuff coming for Aeon Trespass. Yeah, it's not on here. Oh yeah, the 12 Sins of Heracles. Yeah, this is like a 4-part campaign set in different seasons. It's so much. It's easily Aeon Trespass Odyssey is the most expensive game I have ever put money towards, which is saying a lot, honestly. But yeah, I love it. I love the setting. I love the storytelling is probably, I'd say, the best in board gaming. It's definitely top 3, like 100%. And I just cannot wait to have audio narration for it. So that's it. Keep an eye out or go look for my new series for it. We kind of restart since it had been such a long time of playing it. But yeah, this is going to be the new big series on the channel. So definitely give that a watch if you don't want to spend the money on it or don't want to play it yourself. Maybe it will be entertaining for you. But yeah, that was my number 1 game of 2022, same as the original. So the differences of the original to this one is Return to Dark Tower was number 3 in the original. It is not on the list because I actually do not own the game anymore. And for this, I didn't consider games that I don't own. So that completely fell off. And then Wayfarers of the South Tigris, I liked it back whenever I had played it. I have since replayed it, and I didn't quite enjoy it as much. My Father's Work, so Wayfarers was number 9. Number 10 was My Father's Work. I also don't own that game. As I played that one more and more, I feel like that the storytelling of that, while good, and I really love the theme and setting, is you would have to, in my opinion, you had to sacrifice strategy to get different story. And if you played kind of the same way because it worked, then you would have the same story beat. So you'd have to rely on other people to play differently. Didn't quite sync up as much as I wanted it to. I don't think My Father's Work is a bad game by any means, but for me, wasn't really feeling it. And then the honorable mention in the original was Stars of Ikarios, the Seventh Continent, Gloomhaven, X-Wing mishmash. There is absolutely a great game here. The narrative is really bad, especially when you compare it to things like Aeon Trespass and Oathsworn. But the combat system, I think, is done really well. The shipbuilding is really good. The exploration is pretty good. But what's giving Stars of Ikarios a leg up, because I still have that one, they're doing an update. Like, they're basically kind of fixing all their main issues, and hopefully that will kind of give Stars a lot more, just a lot more solidity to it. Like, fix the narrative issues, get better writing, get better rules, kind of clean up some of the fiddliness. But other than that, the X-Wing Gloomhaven combo, which is very apparent that it's ripped, almost, like, you want to talk about Aeon Trespass pulling from Kingdom Death. Stars of Ikarios is doing that way more with Gloomhaven, but I don't actually really give that a knock. I think it works. So Stars of Ikarios was the honorable mention in the original. And that is that, everyone. That is my top 10 games of 2022 revisited. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what your favorite games of 2022 were, and let me know what you think of these games in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.